Now that we know about scales and sharps and flats, we can start talking about chords. And there couldn't be a better order here, since chords are built upon scales. Or in other words, we use our scales to find our chords. And you probably already know that chords are groups of notes. And this doesn't necessarily mean that we have to play all of the notes at the same time. We can also play the notes of a chord in a sequence. We would call that arpeggiating a chord, and will still be that same chord. So this chord, which happens to be a C minor, would be the same as this. As long as I use those, like one of those three notes, we would call it a C minor chord. Usually we call this a block chord, meaning that we play everything at once. And if we do this, we talk about arpeggiated chords, but still it would be that same C minor chord. Just wanted to mention that because there seems to be some confusion here sometimes. So how many notes are there in a chord? Well, this can vary quite a lot, since there are lots of different kinds of chords. We have 7s, sharp 11s, augmented 13, etc. And for the purpose of this course, we need to know quite a few of these chords. But let's start with the very basics, the major and the minor chords. These chords are also called triads because all of them consist of only 3 notes, which we can label the first, more often called the tonic, the third and the fifth. So here's that thing again, where we give notes a number rather than a name. And this is very handy because it allows you to apply the same rules starting on a different note. So for example, if we have this chord here, which is an A minor chord, we have 3 notes, and the first one is the A, and we call that the A as well. Then the second one is the C. We call that the third because it's built upon the third scale degree. And then we have this note, which is the E, and it's the fifth because it's built upon the fifth scale degree. Remember, this was our A minor scale. So that's the fifth note. So for every chord we need to find these 3 notes, which is a lot easier than you would think. So let's say we want to find the chord of C minor, and just from that name we can get all of the notes of the chord. We can find all of the notes. Firstly, it's called a C, so probably we need a C in there. And then it says minor, and what a minor means is that we're gonna use a minor scale and then we count to 3 inside that minor scale to find our third. So that will be an E flat. And this gives us the first 2 notes of the chords already. And additionally, what we have found is our minor third interval. So this is one of those intervals that's great to remember. And now that we find this interval, it's a very good idea to get some practice with it. So for example, try to locate this everywhere on the piano. So play a random note and then find the minor third of that note. So this could be the first one, and then we have another one here. So those are all minor thirds, and if we don't want to count inside the scale, we can also count 3 half steps, or from A. So that's how we find the first 2 notes of a minor chord. So before we look at the third note in this chord, how about the major chord? Well, let's trace back our steps and follow the exact same approach. So let's say we want to find the chord of C major. We already know that we need the C once again, and we also know that we need to use the major scale. So that second part, if I say C major, we can divide that in 2 parts. The first one is the chord name, the C, and the major, we call that the chord quality. It's whether it's a major or minor or a diminished chord. So this time we need to use the major scale to find that third. So again, we count to 3, but this time inside the major scale, which makes us end up there. So this is the interval of a major third. And once again, we can find that anywhere on the piano. Those are all major thirds, which are either 2 whole steps or 4 half steps. So if we start on, let's say G, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives us a major third. Or we count 3 inside the scale. So now we're able to find both minor and major thirds. And if you practice with this just a minute a day, within a few days you start to recognize these already. It looks complicated right now, but really your brain picks up on this quite quickly. And it's great practice as well, because this makes you a lot faster at playing and recognizing chords instantly. Well, I'm saying chord, of course, but so far we haven't actually played a full chord yet, since we haven't talked about that last note. And as I mentioned, there are 3 notes inside these basic triad chords. That's why they're named like that. But so far we've only found 2. And furthermore, it seems like there's no other information in the notation of this chord. We have the chord name, which was the C. Then we have the chord quality, either major or minor. So major for a major third interval from that C, or minor for a minor third interval from that C. But nothing about that last note. Well, that's because this last note, this third note we need to find, which we call the 5th, is the same for both minor and major chords. So that's why it's not mentioned. It's always the same one. And it's the 5th, so let's see how that works. Let's play a C major scale first and count to 5, 3, 4, 5. That makes us end up here. And then let's try playing a minor scale and count to 5 as well. So it also makes us end up there. And that's why the 5th for major and minor chords is the same. So once again, let's start with the C minor. So first we start on C. Then we count to 3 inside a minor scale, and then we count to 5. That gives us these notes. And now if I were to use a major scale and do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we get that one. So the difference between the major and the minor chord is just that one middle note, which is lowered or flattened for a minor chord. Now this interval of 1 and 5, we call that a perfect 5th, and it's made out of 7 half steps. And it's another great one to remember. It's a little bit more difficult because it's far away from the first note of a chord, but again, with some practice, you'll be able to recognize these. So take some time trying to locate this perfect 5th on your piano. Here's one, for example, or here. So those are all 7 half steps intervals. And there's one tricky place on the piano, which is this note. Here we go to an F. This is a perfect 5th, and this one as well. So you might need some more time getting used to these because they look kind of weird. But that's really the only thing to it. Apart from that, it should be fairly straightforward. Okay, lastly, let's get an example in just a different key so that I can show you the approach. Let's say we apply the same rules of whole and half steps to a different note. Let's try F, for example, and let's go with the F minor scale. So if we the way to think about this, let's say somebody asks you to play an F minor scale. It can happen. And let's say you don't know which notes are in that F minor scale. What you would probably know is that from A to A on the piano, all the white notes, that's a natural minor scale. So now we can count the number of whole steps and half steps and apply that same formula to F. So we go whole step first, and then after this we go a half step, because we go from B to C. So we go. And this way you can sort of trace back the whole scale, and it will make you end up with this scale. That's the F natural minor scale. And now that you know that, you can build chords from this. So now if somebody asks you, well, play the F minor chord, now you only need to count to 3 and to 5 within that scale that you just found. So 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which gives you the F minor chord. And then similarly, if you want to make this major, you can just raise that minor third. So minor and major. And these are really the most common chords. If you know major and minor chords, you can get pretty far in life. There are, however, more chords, and some of them we're going to need in the second part of this course, which is going to go way more into depth about harmony. So in the next video we're going to take a look at more advanced chords. Make sure you understand these concepts first though, to not make it too tricky for yourself.